Zeraffa, Giraffa by Dianne Hofmeyr. Across the plains of Africa, where the grass grows tall and acacias taste sweet, came the hunters from the great Pasha of Egypt and the Sudan. When they captured a small giraffe, no taller than the tallest of them, they tied her in a sling to the side of a camel and kept her alive on camel's milk on the journey home. The Pasha was delighted. "She is the perfect gift for my friend, the King of France." He appointed his servant boy, Atiyah, as her keeper and handed him a letter addressed to the king, along with a map. Atiyah unrolled the map and measured the distance. Paris was very far away. It was beyond the edge of Africa, over the sea, on the other side of the world. But first, they had to sail down the river Nile. A felucca was built with two elegant sails that seesawed and pivoted to catch the breeze, with an awning to protect the little giraffe from the sun. "I'll name you Zeraffa," Atiyah whispered as he hung an amulet around her neck. "I'll feed you with milk sweet as lake water, and at night I'll roll back the awning so you can look at the stars." Out past the markets of Khartoum, they sailed with the hot hubbub wind filling their sails, past the silent giraffe paintings of Lahore, past the lion-faced Sphinx and her pyramids. They sailed past ladies combing their hair with the porcupine quills, who offered them dates and pomegranates, until they came to the place where the sea sipped up the Nile. Atiyah led Zeraffa on board a boat bound for France, and at night the sailors sang songs to the beautiful long-necked creature that gazed down at them from between the sails. On the cobblestones of Marseilles, people pushed forward for a glimpse of her. The mayor threw up his hands when Atiyah told him he needed to travel to Paris. "With a giraffe? How? It's impossible. We must consult Monsieur Stravaganza, inventor of things extraordinary." So, Monsieur Stravaganza drew sketches. He added a propeller here, an extra wheel there, but each time the mayor shook his head. "No, a machine like that will never work. A giraffe carried by a hot air balloon? Impossible." "We can walk," said Atiyah. "But Paris is 550 miles away." "Zeraffa has long legs," said Atiyah. So they set off with guards and horses, a carriage, 2 milk cows, and Atiyah leading Zeraffa, protected by a wax taffeta cloak. They walked through the orchards of almonds and olives, through fields of red poppies, through the vineyards of Rhone Valley, where the Mistral wind blew so cold that the waxed taffeta cloak had to be replaced with a woolen one trimmed with fur. News of the amazing creatures soon spread. In Lyon, hundreds of people turned out to see her. By the time they neared Paris, thousands were lining the road, greedy for a glimpse of her. "It's a creature from Africa. Zeraffa from Africa. Zeraffa, Giraffa." Children squeezed through the crowds to count her spots. Ladies leaned from saloon windows to tickle her ears. But Zeraffa took no notice. She strolled down from Champs-Élysées, nibbling the tops of the trees just as she had done on the plains of Africa. At the Palace of St. Claude, the Queen organized a soiree. Guests gathered in bristling uniforms and rustling taffeta to admire Zeraffa. "What a handsome creature!" exclaimed the gentleman. "How sweet she is," sighed the ladies. "Such long eyelashes, such a black tongue." In the Jardin du Plains, the king had prepared a rotunda with wooden floors and a mosaic of straw on the walls. People came in thousands to see her. Paris fell in love. They wrote poems and songs. Gardeners clipped giraffe hedges. Bakers baked giraffe biscuits. Dogs wore spotted jackets. Men wore tall hats. Girls wore red ribbons around their necks. Ladies glued long eyelashes to their lids and twisted their hair up into styles a la giraffe, so high that they had to lie down inside their carriages as they rode across Paris to see her. In the evenings, after the crowds had left, the king's granddaughter, Louise Marie Therese, slipped secretly into the garden. She climbed the ladder to the platform, where she stood face to face with Zeraffa, and combed her mane and fed her apples. Then she listened as a deer whispered in Zeraffa's ear. He told tales of a hot land far away, where grass grows tall and acacias taste sweet. He whispered stories of a lake and of stars that turned the sky into curdled milk, and of a hot hubbub wind. Then they stood in silence and looked out over the lights of Paris. And on those evenings, when the air was particularly balmy, all three turned their faces southwards, and on the warm air they felt the kiss of Africa. About the real Zeraffa. Muhammad Ali was a fierce ruler of Egypt who wanted to make friends with the King of France, Charles X. When he heard that the king was planning a collection of strange animals, he decided a giraffe would be the perfect gift. A baby giraffe was captured on the plains of Africa in 1824. But she was too weak to walk, and so was trapped on a camel and taken to the banks on the river Nile. The giraffe was loaded into a small boat called a felucca and taken down the river all the way to the Mediterranean Sea. Here, she was loaded onto a bigger sailing ship and taken across the sea to Marseilles in France. But when she arrived, nobody knew how the giraffe would get all the way to Paris, where the king lived. Eventually, it was decided she would walk. The entire journey, starting with her being tied to a camel, the 2,000-mile trip down the Nile, the 3-week sail across the Mediterranean Sea, and finally the 550-mile walk from Marseilles to Paris, took 2.5 years. By the time she arrived in Paris, she stood 4 meters tall and was the first giraffe ever seen in France. The year was 1827. She lived with her keeper Attia in a building called Le Rotonde in the Jardin du Plains. Attia slept high up on a platform close to her face and never left her sight. 12 years later, a second young female giraffe was transported down the Nile and sent to Paris to keep her company. When Zeraffa died of old age on 12th of January 1845, after living in Paris for 18 years, Attia was still with her. Le Rotonde still stands in the Jardin du Plains, and if you visit on a quiet day and close your eyes, perhaps you will feel the hot wind and imagine yourself there with Zeraffa, Attia, and Louise Marie Therese.